Bring on holiday craft nights. This busted canvas project is stylish, simple, cheap, and makes the perfect gift. Hey guys, before we start our busted canvas adventure, I just want to quickly mention that most of the supplies you're going to need, you can actually get from the dollar store, which makes this craft super affordable. Now for the full list of supplies, including the free printables I'll be using in today's projects, you can check out the description below. Now let's jump right into our first project. Step 1 is applying a nice thick layer of our Mod Podge on your canvas board. That's the thinner canvas. Now once you've got a nice thick layer on your canvas board, grab your hairdryer and give it a quick dry. Drying it at this stage is super important because it helps your design stick smoothly with zero wrinkles. I learned this Mod Podge hack the hard way. You'll see in my first busted canvas project, and I'll show you that later on. Now once it's dried to the touch, place your printed Grinch design on top of the board. And then you're just gonna grab some parchment paper and a hot iron, and you're gonna press over the entire design. This allows the glue to melt just enough to make your design stick seamlessly to the canvas board. It's almost like magic. And as mentioned earlier, this is what happens when you put your design over top of wet Mod Podge. It gets all wrinkly and not really smooth compared to the method where you're drying the Mod Podge and then ironing over top, which gives you a really smooth application. Now grab your stretch canvas, the thicker one, and flip it over so the wooden frame is facing up. Take your festive gift wrapping or any colorful paper works here like scrapbook paper and cut it to size. There's no need for perfection. A little extra white of the canvas showing around the edges is perfectly fine since that part won't be visible from the front. Next, you're going to apply a layer of Mod Podge to the back side of the canvas, and then you're going to lay that wrapping paper directly over that wet Mod Podge. I found that this method worked better than ironing here since I didn't actually have a small enough iron for the inner edges, and also the slightly wrinkled look gave it a really cool rustic vibe. But if you prefer a smoother finish and you have a small iron, you can repeat the ironing technique from step 1 here instead. Now after placing the paper down, add a thin layer of Mod Podge on top to seal it. This also gives it a really shiny finish in the end, making it look almost like a satin ribbon material once it's dried, and it's super cool. I can't wait for you guys to see it. Now with the back set, flip over your canvas to work on the front portion. Start by grabbing some bright green tissue paper, like the kind of stuff you use in gift bags, and then cut it a bit larger than the canvas so it also covers the sides. Now you're gonna have some fun and crumple up that tissue paper into a ball, and then you're going to unfold it and place it to the side. There's something so satisfying about doing this step. Next, apply a thin layer of Mod Podge to the entire front and sides of your canvas and carefully place your crumpled tissue paper over that Mod Podge on the canvas top and the sides. We're going for texture here, so the wet Mod Podge is our friend and perfect to bring out that amazing crinkled texture. A little tip here is that if your tissue paper tears a little, do not worry. We're going to add another layer to cover up any spots. This double layer also makes the green color even more bolder. I think Mr. Grinch would definitely approve. Now talking about our second layer, that's exactly what we're doing here. We're going to be applying a layer of Mod Podge directly over top of the green, and then we're going to take our green gift wrapping paper, we're going to crumple it up in a ball and also enjoy that part, and then we're going to unfold it and place it right over top of that wet Mod Podge on the front and the sides of our canvas. And this should cover up any tears and rips or imperfections in this step. Once you've added the second layer of tissue paper, you're going to seal it with a final layer of Mod Podge. Another tip here is while working with Mod Podge, you might notice that some color bleeds. Just keep the brush strokes as gentle and light as possible and try to avoid over brushing. You only need a very thin layer on the top coat here. Now we're going to let both the front and the back fully dry. I used a hairdryer to speed things up, which you can also do here. Make sure that the Mod Podge is completely dry before moving on to the next step. If it's still a bit tacky, the next steps will be just a little bit harder and more challenging. Now that you've got both pieces of your busted canvas prepped and ready to go, it's time to bust it and then bring it all together. To start, take your double-sided canvas and mark the center. Then you're going to grab a pair of scissors and start cutting out your busted design. I like to personally start by cutting a cross shape and then cutting an X right through it, creating a total of 8 flaps. For that extra authentic punched through look, skip the ruler and let your hand go a bit rogue. Keep the lines a bit uneven and also vary the flap sizes. Now, if you're feeling creative, try adding more than 8 flaps to change things up. I'm going to show you in the next projects where I go for a 9 or even 10 flaps for a unique twist. Once you're done with the cuts, feel free here to give the canvas a good punch through for fun. It's oddly satisfying. Next, you're going to take your double-sided canvas and then you're going to place it over the Grinch panel to test out the flap sizes. Now, to test out the sizes, simply just lift up the flaps to make sure the Grinch design is nicely centered and that the ho 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 text is fully visible. This step helps you plan and ensures that all your cuts and flaps are big enough so that the design isn't cut off or misaligned. I ended up even making a few extra of my cuts a little bit deeper to add some variety to the look. This little check-in step is super important before we start gluing everything down. Now it's time to start curling and gluing our flaps down to get that signature busted canvas look. The easiest way to do this is to pre-curl each flap first so you know exactly where it's going to go, and then use the hot glue gun to secure it into place. A quick tip here is use a pencil to hold down the flap firmly while the glue sets, so it stays put. If you find the flaps aren't sticking, it might be because the Mod Podge layer underneath isn't fully dried. Just let that Mod Podge dry a little bit more and that should solve the issue. Go ahead and glue down all the flaps. This creates that classic busted canvas look that you'll see in many projects. But stick around for our next project and I'm going to show you a different, less common style that I think looks even more authentic and prettier and natural. I picked this up from a lovely channel called Crafting with Candace. Now we're ready to glue the panel onto the stretched canvas so it all becomes one solid piece. Flip over your double-sided canvas and then add a thick line of hot glue around the edges. I like to make the glue line extra thick so it doesn't dry too fast, giving me time to adjust. Then place your canvas board on top and then press it down. While the glue is still flexible here, you can check and adjust to make sure both canvases' edges are as flush as possible. But that being said, do not stress if they're not perfectly aligned. We'll be covering the sides with a pretty ribbon in the next step, so it doesn't have to be flawless. Now it's time to add some ribbon to cover up any jagged edges and to give our busted canvas a cohesive look. Now you can use any ribbon you like or already have at home. I found this burlap ribbon at the dollar store and there was enough for 2 out of 3 of my busted canvases. This particular ribbon was self-adhesive, making it super easy to apply, but if yours isn't, don't worry, just grab your hot glue gun and secure it into place. Now, once the ribbon is on, it covers any raw edges, and then you're going to notice that the canvas looks way more polished and ready for display. But before putting it on your shelf, there's one more step you can take to add some extra charm. Consider accessorizing with trinkets or little details. I decided to add a branch from my backyard, and then I glued on these little mini pom-poms onto it, kind of like Grinch berries for a fun touch. I also used a piece of pine branch from my Christmas decor. I actually just ripped it off a larger decoration piece I already had, so no extra shopping was needed. And then I made a bow from some sparkly ribbon. And then I used my hot glue gun to secure everything into place. Now in the next projects, I'm going to show you how I went nature shopping in my neighborhood for even more Christmassy details. I forgot to mention that I added 2 mini candy canes glued in the shape of a heart as final detail to this busted canvas, and I absolutely love how it all came together. Now onto our next project. Our next busted canvas is this adorable cowboy snowman. The free printable for the snowman design is available on my blog, and the link is in the description. First up, apply Mod Podge to the canvas panel, then dry it with a hairdryer. Once it's dry, place the snowman print directly on top and iron on with parchment paper to get a smooth finish. For the stretched canvas, we're going with a scrunched up dark green tissue paper background on the backside. Apply Mod Podge between 2 layers of the tissue paper, adding a final layer top coat to give it a satin-like finish. Then you're going to flip the canvas over, and then here's a twist. I use the ironing method to add the background on the front of the canvas. I found this faster than waiting for the Mod Podge to dry and perfect for a smoother look. This is ideal if you're hosting a craft night, for example, since it skips the drying time. I did run into a small issue with this method, but I'll cover that later on. Once your tissue paper Mod Podge layer is fully dry, it's time to make the cuts. Find the center of the canvas and then cut across, then an X, creating a total of 8 flaps. Now I wanted to add in an extra flap here, so I cut a 9th one. Also, I made them purposely irregular in size to give it more of an authentic busted look. Now let's create our curls. For this one, I tried a little bit of a different style compared to the Grinch one at the beginning with double curls. And then I also let the ends show instead of tucking them under. To do this, I used a pencil to help shape the curls initially and then hot glued them into place. I really love how this style looks. For me, it feels more raw and it looks like someone actually literally punched through the canvas. Let me know in the comments below which style you prefer. I had one small hiccup though with the ironing method, which was that the burlap background didn't fully adhere to the canvas front. So as I folded the flaps, some of the paper started to separate. A quick dab of hot glue fixed that, but some of the white border got a bit misaligned. In the end though, I think it actually adds to the broken look of the piece. Now let's put both pieces together to make this one complete artwork. Start by applying a really thick line of hot glue around the border of the back of the stretch canvas, then place the panel right on top, and you can adjust it while the glue is still flexible. Just a note here that the burlap background used in this busted canvas project is also available as a free download, and you'll find the link below. Next, we're going to add a ribbon around the outer edges of the canvas to give it a nice, polished finish. You can use hot glue to secure the ribbon all the way around. And now for the fun details. I wanted to give this piece an earthy, Mother Nature inspired look, so I took a little walk in my neighborhood to find some natural goodies. I came across some gorgeous acorns and a branch, perfect for what I had in mind. Now back at my crafting table, I hot glued the branch and then hung the acorns from it as a natural touch to this vintage snowman. I also found some fake winter berries in my Christmas stash, so I glued those on for a pop of color. I adore how this snowman turned out. He's such a cutie. I even added a couple of bows to complete the look. Stay tuned at the end of this video for all the final touches. Now let's move on to the next one. Our last project is a vintage style Santa in his element. He's in his workshop and he's carefully going over the naughty and nice list to get ready for Christmas. Now this is a free printable you can download, and the link is in the description below. We'll start as we did with the other projects. We're going to apply a layer of Mod Podge to the panel board, dry it with a hair dryer, and then we're going to place the Santa print on top, and then we're going to use an iron and parchment paper to press it down smoothly. Next, moving on to the stretched canvas. We're adding 2 layers of scrunched up tissue paper with Mod Podge in between for that textured look. If your tissue paper tears a bit on the first layer like mine did, no worries. It's going to be covered with the second layer. Once it's done, flip your canvas over and add the Santa Claus is Coming to Town sheet music, which is also a download on my blog, using the ironing method. To make it look even more aged and vintage, a tip here could be that you could try staining it with some tea or coffee. Now you're gonna let the Mod Podge on the stretch canvas dry completely, and you can use a hair dryer to speed things up if you have one. Now, once it's dry, we're gonna make our cuts by creating a cross shape first and then an X shape for a total of 8 flaps. Now I went a little bit rogue here and I added 10 flaps, so I made 2 additional cuts, and I also made sure I varied the sizes and angles of all the flaps to keep things really raw and authentic looking. After checking that my Santa is centered, I then started gluing down the flaps using the double curl style, which is my personal favorite. If your paper starts to buckle or separate during the curls, just use a little bit of hot glue to keep everything in place. I think this ironing method might actually work a little bit better if my layer of Mod Podge was a little bit thicker, but if you've tried this method and you've got any tips, please share them in the comments below. Once our curls are all in place, we're going to glue the panel to the stretch canvas to make it one piece. Then I finished the edges with a fluffy white ribbon that reminded me of Santa's beard, and I secured it down with hot glue. Now it's on to the fun details. I added acorns and some other Christmassy bits for my holiday decor stash. I also added brown bows, since both brown and bows are trending in Christmas decor this year. My goal was to capture Santa in a behind-the-scenes moment, showing all the hard work that brings joy to kids all over the world. He's a true rock star. If you're looking for more Christmas decor ideas, but don't have time to gather all the materials, because let's face it, around the holidays, you have a gazillion and one things to do, then you want to check out my DIY vintage ornament video, where I'll show you how to grab an all-in-one kit that's perfect for crafting or even gifting. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, sending you lots of peace, love, and color your way.